Hi, and welcome to Jankinsgard on Risk, the YouTube channel dedicated to the philosophy, theory, and practice of risk management. I'm here to introduce you to my new book, The Black Swan Problem, Risk Management Strategies for a World of Wild Uncertainty. As the events of recent years have shown, we live in a black swan-infested place, where the uncertainty is of the wild sort. But what are the implications of this for business strategy? How are we supposed to lead, manage, and prepare our organizations under these circumstances? Taleb, in his book, The Black Swan, does not take an interest in the firm per se, whereas in this book, I tackle this issue straight on. But before describing the contents of the book, I would like to bring your attention to what Aswath Damodaran, the leading valuation expert, has to say about this book. He points out that most people who read Taleb's work come away with a sense of the hopelessness of analysis and planning. Whereas Dr. Jankinsgard turns the process on its head and develops constructive responses to black swans. And the book presents a rare and valuable look at the black swan issue through the lens of corporate, strategic, and financial decisions. And this is exactly what this book sets out to do. So what are we dealing with here? Well, wild uncertainty means that there are no neat probabilities in the real world. We have pure uncertainty, mostly of the wild sort, meaning that there are frequent non-linearities, discontinuities, abrupt and massive change. Here's one example, the spike in the price of electricity and natural gas that occurred due to the Texas freeze in early 2021. There was nothing in the tail that would have indicated that this kind of extreme risk was even possible. So that's one example of wild uncertainty. Black swans certainly can break or make corporate strategies. The strategic implications of black swans are potentially tremendous. And there are two ways or two reasons why corporates should fear black swans. One is the strategy disruption, when the firm's ability to create value and execute a strategy is severely impaired by one of these black swan events. That happens through a number of mechanisms that are described in the book. Or the ultimate consequence is, of course, the wipeout, when the firm ceases to function and is liquidated. It's game over. So there are plenty of examples of both these unfortunate outcomes. The question is, what can we do? Why is managing against this kind of tail risk such a challenge for many firms? Well, there are two things to say about this. One is the affordability issue, which is to say that it costs money to become more resilient. You have to invest in buffers or risk mitigation, and all of this is costing money, whereas companies are trying to be cost efficient and they want to maximize their margins, right, in the short term. So running throughout this book is a persistent tension between tail risk management and economic efficiency. In the name of short-term margins, we may sacrifice our long-term resilience by underinvesting in risk management. And this is a classic problem in the corporate sector. But there is a legitimate concern with cost here. You can potentially risk manage yourself out of business if you go for maximum robustness at every turn. And if you tilt too far in this direction, you might even become a prepper. So the other thing that makes it hard to deal proactively with tail risk is the biases. It's well known that people and organizations are biased against tail risk management, and it happens for a number of reasons, a number of biases. One is the confirmation bias, whereby we tell the story we would like to hear and then start finding evidence to support it. So that makes us blind to things that are going on outside our mental models. We also have optimistic can-do organizational cultures in which there's no time or place for conversations about tail risk. So we just don't stop to think about it for cultural reasons. So those are just two out of a great many biases that affect our ability to deal with tail risk in a good way. So the Black Swan problem then is that firms fail to visualize and prepare for improbable high impact events, and that generic strategies that require no action like increasing buffers and having lots of cash around, etc., reduce the return on equity in the vast number of scenarios in which no calamity happens, meaning that there's this tension between cost efficiency in the short term and longer term resilience, right? So the book has 7 chapters. We first revisit the Black Swan issue and clear up a number of misconceptions and misunderstandings about black swans. We point to the strategic dimension. Black swans are functions of expectations and attitudes and knowledge, making them highly relative with strategic implications. So that's one of the takeaways. Corporate swans is when we take a look at swans from the perspective of a firm. You have natural disasters and man-made systems throwing black swans at firms, but there are also swans arising from within. There are swans within the firm, which is when companies are tripped up massively by people within their own ranks, including quite possibly the rogue CEO. So on to the Black Swan problem then, which is when we take a close look at why the problem arises and what makes it so hard to be proactive about tail risk then. And then we outline a solution to this problem. It comes in 4 steps. Greeting the swan is when we face up or take wild uncertainty for granted and start having the right kind of conversations about the implications of tail risk for our strategy. And we make the appropriate assumptions about uncertainty in the world, right? About randomness, the nature of randomness. The next step is taming the swan, when we go for strategies that make us more resilient. Meaning we find ways to use our limited patience and resources for tail risk management effectively, so as to protect the strategy and withstand these shocks. On to catching the swan, when we fully recognize the strategic dimension of black swans, that others may be less prepared and less realistic about wild uncertainty and therefore suffering more, and this might lead to opportunities presenting themselves that otherwise would not have been possible to capitalize on. So this is when we acknowledge that black swans, yes, they imply extreme risk, but also possibly extreme upside potential and opportunity. But it takes, we need to develop a strategy for black swan events, which is an add-on to our usual business strategy. But we can design a strategy or add-on to the strategy that is designed to perform in the event of wholesale disorder created by one of these black swans. Finally, chapter 7 is riding the swan, when we continue to explore the fact that there are also positive black swans, and we can position ourselves for, we grab the swan by its neck essentially and follow it up towards the sky, and we pull all the levers for maximum exposure. This is when we switch into risk-loving mode and we throw ourselves into an adventure. We have now a vast appetite for risk and want to just go for it. So all the lessons that we drew when taming the swan and building resilience was the goal, we need the opposite of that now. So that's riding the swan. All right, so yeah, that summarizes the outline of the book, and please get your copy and take care. See you soon.